In this episode, we celebrate our 10th episode with a jam-packed one. We start with announcing the winner of our first giveaway, give a rundown of the games I've been playing and the games I've recently picked up, plus my considerations in adding a game to the collection. Finally, we end the episode with some feedback from the meeple. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 10 of OnDeck, a podcast about tabletop gaming in the Philippines. If it's your first time listening in, welcome to the show. My name is Glory and I host this podcast. I also run the hobby Instagram account, the Boardgamer PH, where I take pictures of and talk about my board game sessions with my friends. First of all, 10 episodes, double digits! I honestly thought I would not be able to sustain this podcast. But after working out the ideal schedule for me and keeping my release schedule down to every other week instead of every week as I originally planned, I think I will be able to sustain this for the long run. Fingers crossed. So if you listened to the previous episode, and I hope you did, you would know that we launched our first giveaway. What I did was I got my call pile together and asked you guys to like the Facebook page of OnDeck, share the giveaway post, and comment the game that you would like to win. So we're going to be picking the winners right in this episode. Well, right at this recording. And I've written down the names of the people who have complied with the parameters of the giveaway, and I will be drawing 2 names. The first name I draw will be picking from the Small Games collection, and the second name I draw will be picking from the Big Games collection. Syempre, offline na tong mga conversations na to, right? So here goes. Just to prove that I've actually written down their names, I hope you hear that. I put them in a small bowl, okay? So, let's get the first name. The first person, I'll just list down the games that this person can win. This person can choose from games like Cardline Globetrotter, Codenames Deep Undercover, Dixit Odyssey Expansion, Don't Mess with Cthulhu, Ticket to Ride Europe Expansion, Cryptos, Rhino Hero Super Battle, Say Anything, Tides of Madness, Tides of Time, and Tiny Epic Quest. So medyo madami siyang choices. And the first winner is Luke! So Luke, congratulations, I think Luke wanted to win Say Anything. So I'm going to get in touch with Luke and tell him that he won. Okay, the next person. Wait, kuha muna tayo ulit. Okay. So the next person will be picking from the big game pile. Okay, so the games included in the big game pile are Cosmic Encounter, Dead Last, Deadline, Dice Town, The Quest for El Dorado, and The Resistance with all of its expansions, okay? Medyo mas konti yung choices niya, but they're big games. So, I think matutuwa naman siguro yung person na to. And the winner is Tonichi! Tonichi, congratulations! I think, if I remember correctly, I think Tonichi wanted to get Cosmic Encounter. If that's true, then it worked out for both of them. So, congratulations to our winners. I hope you guys enjoyed the giveaway. It is my way to thank you, my listeners, for your patronage and for getting us to 10 episodes. Stay tuned for other giveaways in the future. Finally, before we go to our first segment, I just wanted to remind everyone that I do a live stream with Gaming Library every Tuesday night called G Live Game Night. So this is usually shared via the Gaming Library Facebook page, but you can also find the stream on the Facebook page of OnDeck. If you are not able to catch the stream, don't worry, we will be posting the games we play during game night in both Gaming Libraries and the Boardgamer PH's respective YouTube accounts. So with that, let's now go to our first segment, What Have I Been Playing? So as usual, let's start this segment with a couple of games that I've talked about before. First we played Sagada again. Blue and my sister loved it. Blue agrees with me that we like Sagada over Azul because of the meaningful decisions and the stressful turns you go through in this game. What I noticed though is that it's so easy for new players to make a placement mistake. Well, I'm not a new player. Well, medyo new, but not really. And I still make some placement mistakes. So I suggest to have the more senior player, one, keep an eye on the placement of new players. The thing is, to be adjacent, you can be diagonal, right? But the placement considerations are only orthogonal. So it's quite confusing, especially for new players. So I suggest that the more senior one, bantayan mo na lang. I also got to introduce Wingspan to Blue and Celine and they loved it. Yay! Especially Celine. I have a feeling that Celine is also an engine building girl like me. I really love Wingspan. I don't think I played optimally in this game because I was teaching the game. Unlike when I was being taught the game, I think I was able to strategize more. But since I was teaching it to them and I was taking them through the turns, I wasn't playing my best. But I still enjoyed. Winning isn't that important to me. I love the components of this game. I really, really love the components. And I love how easy this game is to teach to new players. Although I had to guide, especially Celine, I had to guide them in terms of activating the birds already on their habitat. But everything was understood. Except for this little nitty-gritty part, everything else was understood. If you have not played Wingspan, I highly suggest that you do so, especially if you like engine building games. This is really a great game. Next, we played Number 9. Number 9 is an abstract strategy game for 1 to 4 players from Z-Man Games. This game feels like 3D Tetris. Each round, a card will be drawn showing a number, and all players must get that number from a set of tiles and place it in front of them. In placing a tile, there are only 2 rules. First, a new tile must touch at least one other tile on the same level along one side of the squares printed on the tile. So, yung mga tiles kasi meron siyang mga squares, so parang may grid within that tile. And the only rule is if you are placing it on one level, it has to be adjacent to another tile within that square, within at least one square of the new tile. Okay? It's quite difficult to understand, but I think if you see the game, you'll get it. The second rule is, if you're going to put the tile on another level, kasi nga 3D, so pwede kang mas mataas, it must be on top 2 or more tiles underneath, and there can be no overhang. So kailangan more than one. So you can't just put one tile over another tile. So kunwari, may 9 ka sa baba, hindi ka pwede maglagay ng 9 directly on top of it because it must touch another tile. So the reason why this seems like a 3D Tetris is that the tiles in this game are weirdly shaped. I think pinaka napansin namin was the number 7. Sobrang weird nung pagkaka-shape nung tile. Sadya talaga na weird yung shape. So especially when you get to the higher numbered ones, pahirap yung shape niya. It was intentionally so because it has to be difficult playing the higher numbered ones because points are computed based on the tiles and their respective levels. So overall, this game is a very nice filler. And if you like abstract strategy games and you don't mind the spatialness of this game, you will definitely like this one. For me personally, I am not a huge fan of abstract strategy games. I think I've mentioned this before, except for the Gigamic line, Corridor or Squadro. But I think I'll be keeping this one for a light filler and to try it out with my other friends who like abstract strategy. Although I wish that it came in a smaller box. I mean, I don't understand why it had to be the same size as Century Spice Road or, no, it's smaller than Splendor, but Century Spice Road, ganun siya kalaki. But for me, I think it would have fit in a smaller box. You didn't need that big box. So the next game is Let's Make a Bus Route. Let's Make a Bus Route is a flip and write route building game for 2 to 5 players from Sashi and Sashi. If the publisher sounds unfamiliar, it's because this game is from Japan. And I don't think you can get it outside of Japan. Well, there are some friendly local gaming stores here in Manila that carry some Sashi and Sashi games, but it's not that common. I personally picked up my copy from a Yellow Submarine branch in Osaka, and I was so relieved that the people in Yellow Submarine assisted me and told me that I will be able to understand the game because there's an English translation. In fact, this game has a double-sided board with one side in English and another in Japanese. And that's so very thoughtful of Sashi and Sashi that you really have to appreciate it. Anyway, in this game, you basically play bus operators. Each player has his or her own player board to track things, but the routes that the player makes is placed on the shared board in the middle. That's where you write it, or that's where you draw. So every turn, a color is revealed, and based on that color, the player will know what his or her direction is. So kung straight or straight and then turn, straight turn and then straight again. In this type of route or this type of direction is different for each player depending on the color. So as you build your route, you will pick up and drop off passengers, and the number of passengers dropped at a particular place plays into your score. So for example, the more tourists you drop off at the tourist site, the more points that is worth. You also have private route objectives, and you deduct points if you intersect with other routes from other players because you cause traffic. Allergic sila sa traffic. Hindi katulad dito sa Pilipinas. Anyway, so at the end of the game, the person with the most number of points wins after all the deductions and whatnot. So what I find interesting in playing a Japanese game is that it really feels different. While playing this, Blue just kept on saying, the Japanese think of everything. Because the game just feels so complete. From the private objective to avoiding other routes so that you don't get deductions for traffic, to picking up different types of passengers and dropping them off at different locations, to rerouting if you need to. For example, if you can't make a valid move because of the direction, you can reroute that, you can change it, but it will cost you a deduction. I honestly don't like gushing about the game that's hard for you guys to get, but if you ever know anyone who will be going to Japan and close kayo, or if you are going to Japan, please do check out games from Sashi and Sashi, especially Let's Make a Bus Route. I'm also hunting down games from this publisher, don't worry. The next game is Gizmos. Gizmos is an engine building game for 2 to 4 players from Common Limited. In this game, you're basically just trying to build the best engine or gizmos. On your turn, you only have 4 options. 1. Archive a card from the playing area. 2. Get an energy marble from the energy dispenser. 3. Build a gizmo. And 4. Research or get a number of cards from the face-down decks. So on your turn, you can only do one of these things. But as you buy gizmos, these gizmos give you an additional ability triggered by another action. For example, if I choose to pick a red marble or heat energy and my tableau contains a gizmo that says that every time I get a red marble, I can do other actions like pick a random marble or get a victory point, then I get to do several actions within one turn. And you basically want to create a fantastic chain that lets you do many things in one turn. When one player has built their 16th gizmo or 4th level 3 gizmo, the game ends and the person with the most points for their gizmos from their gizmos and VP tokens wins. So this game is often compared to Splendor, and I think I see why. In Splendor, you want to be efficient, meaning you want to have your cards to replace the jewels and therefore be able to buy new cards without having to collect jewels. So it's an efficiency thing. The same goes for this. You want to have the right combination of gizmos that will allow you to maximize your turn. And while I like the game very much because of how cool the production is and how the concept is really a favorite concept of mine, efficiency and being able to do many things in one turn, I find that it lacks the tension present in Splendor. For one, Blue and I observed that it was not that difficult to get the level 3 cards, unlike the level 3 cards in Splendor. Especially since some of them just require 7 random marbles and the marble dispenser just replenishes, unlike in Splendor where the jewels are finite, and if your opponent gets them, you can't get them until your opponent spends them. So there, I think the tension was lacking a bit. It's still just one game in, so I will play this again, and maybe with more people, I'll see if it still feels that way. But overall, I enjoy the game, and I'm looking forward to getting this played again. The next game is Bunny Kingdom. Bunny Kingdom is a card drafting area control game for 2 to 4 players from Ayalo. In this game, you're basically building a kingdom with your bunnies. You do the action based on the cards drafted, build your cities based on the cards you drafted, harvest or score your fiefs depending on the number of cities and resources on your fiefs, which are adjacent spaces on the board where your bunnies are. This takes place over 4 rounds, and in the end, you do one last harvest, score your secret points, and the players with the most points wins. So when I first saw this game, I thought that it was more complicated than it actually is, but it's essentially just a card drafting game. The reason why I thought it was more complicated than it is because of the way it looks. I mean, it's grandiose. There are 100 spaces on the board, and you fill that 100 spaces with bunnies and castle-looking cities, right? So, feeling mo, may away. Actually, akala ko medyo war game siya, but it's not. So, what I like about this game is that you can have different strategies to win. During my first game, I just tried to have the biggest fief, but then I realized that this is useless because my harvest score will depend on the number of cities, meaning the castles that I build, and you multiply this by the different kind of resources on your fief. So unless I get those resources in cities, it doesn't really matter if I have the biggest fief. The secret parchments that score at the end of the game is also a good strategy to win, but this is luck-driven because you don't know when you are going to encounter those parchments. And chances are, since it's card drafting, everyone is after those parchments. And also, sometimes when you get that parchment but you get a really good territory card where you know will be beneficial to your fief, then you're in that dilemma of giving that parchment card to your opponent because you really, really need that territory card. So I love this push and pull and this difference or trying to mix and match the right strategy for your game. I've yet to win a game of Bunny Kingdom. Bala ko, next game, gagalingan ko na talaga. Performance level. And I will win a game of Bunny Kingdom. So I love the components of this game. Blue says that it looks kiddie because it's colorful and they're bunnies. But I have no complaints. I really like it. So it's so quick, even with the full player count. I've played this only with 4 players and it plays in like 45 minutes. I can't wait to play it with the expansion though. I don't think I'm going to include a 5th player, maybe just one time just to try it out. But I love the fact that it adds another layer because it's Bunny Kingdom in the sky. So there, that's Bunny Kingdom. The next game is Century: A New World. So Century New World is a new worker placement game for 2 to 4 players from Plan B Games. This is supposed to end the Century trilogy with the first one, Century Spice Road, Century Eastern Wonders, and now this Century New World. So basically, if you're familiar with Century Spice Road, it'll be easy for you to get into this game. Instead of cards, you place your workers on spots on the board that will let you obtain or convert your cubes. Then you also have spots where you can fulfill the requirement to get the cards for victory points that also allows you to obtain a special power or explore a different part of the board that was covered or get combos for endgame bonuses. So I know that this can be combined with Century Spice Road, but right now, as it is, as a standalone game, I think I like this better than Century Spice Road. It plays as quick as Century Spice Road, but still feels like it's meatier and there's more strategy to it. I personally don't own Century Eastern Wonders, but I've heard that it wasn't that good. So, wala na akong balak bilhin yun. I think if I have to choose, if I'm going to let go of something, I might be letting go of Century Spice Road. I like the scoring more because of the combos that you can work towards. And as a worker placement game, I like that you have the option to oust someone from a spot by just placing more workers. So overall, I really liked my first roll of Century New World. And I think I'll just play both games combined and see if I like it. If I do not, then I'll be keeping this one and not Century Spice Road. Next is Chronicles of Crime. Chronicles of Crime is a cooperative storytelling game for 1 to 4 players from Lucky Duck Games. So in this game, you're basically a detective investigating a crime. This game is app-assisted and you're able to investigate locations, talk to witnesses, specialists, and gather clues with the help of the app. The coolest part is that when you search a crime scene, you have the option to do this through VR glasses, which of course I have to have, right? So yeah, I bought it. Anyway, when you're ready to solve the case, you go back to Scotland Yard, your home base, and you answer a series of questions, and you are scored based on the answers and the time it took you to solve it. So I've played a few of the included scenarios, and first and foremost, I have to say that this game is a quicker and more engaging detective. I really like this more than Detective. You guys know that I didn't like my play of Detective. It was so wordy and it felt like the story didn't really add anything. But with that comparison aside, I must say that Chronicles of Crime is still difficult to solve. We played one of the easy scenarios and we barely got half of the score. We passed, but it was half, okay? We experienced being stuck multiple times. Nawala na kaming next move. And there was even one scenario that the answer was totally not even within the vicinity of our investigation. But for me, that difficulty level makes the game more fun. I also love the technology integration in this game. Basically, you search locations and you talk to witnesses by scanning QR codes. You scan a person and then you scan a particular thing so that the person talks about the thing or the person talks about another person. So this is very, very cool. And also, of course, the VR glasses. Meron akong isang kalaro na meron kasing dead body in the crime scene. And you really have to look around when you're wearing the VR glasses. So pagtalikod niya, bigla nakita niya may dead body and nagulat siya. I mean, it's cartoony, but it's still amazing. I also love that within the base game, you can just buy additional scenarios. I think one scenario is like 250 pesos. And you don't even have to get new cards. I mean, you use the same components. But there are a couple of expansions out for this game. The Noir expansion and the Red View expansion, the one that just came out this year. I got the Noir expansion. I'm holding off on the Red View because it received a lukewarm review from Tom Vassell. And I think instead of having all the specialists, you play different characters. But I still like that theme. It's medyo Stranger Vibes theme. So that's Chronicles of Crime. Next, I also played NewsFueled. NewsFueled is a worker placement game for 1 to 5 players from Lookout Games. So this is my entry point in the heavier Uwe Rosenberg games. Because so far, I've only played Patchwork and Agricola Family Edition from Uwe. Yes, close kami, first name basis. I think I made the right choice by getting NewsFueled as my entry point. So this game works like any other worker placement game. You have a few workers and you're putting them in places to trigger actions. But the unique thing here is that you're only collecting 2 resources, wood and fish. Mas marami pa sa Agricola Family Edition. May cow, may pig, may sheep, may wheat. So, mas marami pa yon. But you're also doing stuff on your own personal space, like deforesting, so you have more places for buildings, serving fish to village elders who give you special actions, putting your shares out to the market, buying your shares back from the market, and other things. At the end of 7 rounds, the player with the most money wins. So I really, really like this game. I mentioned before that I find worker placement games relaxing, and this is one of those that are not so relaxing worker placement games. You don't have a lot of places to go to unlike other Uwe games, but that just makes your actions more significant in my opinion. You need to make sure that you optimize your turn since the game is played in just 7 rounds and that goes by so quickly. I think mas mabilis pa nga to kaysa sa Agricola Family Edition. Because Agricola Family Edition plays more than 7 rounds and you get more workers. Here, I don't think there's an option for you to get more workers. So I was only working with 3 workers. I also love the fact that they include enough variability in this game by giving players the option to play with varying levels of buildings. And once players are more familiar, they can even mix and match. So as an entry point in the Uwe Rosenberg style games, I've been hearing that this is a good entry point. It plays quickly, it's not overly complex, and the theme isn't boring. Actually, I don't find farming or fishing themes boring. Mas nabobore pa ako sa space theme sci-fi games. So overall, I really like NewsFueled and I need to play it again for sure. Not just want. I need to play it again. The next game is Cryptid. Cryptid is a deduction game for 3 to 5 players from Osprey Games. In this game, all the players are basically cryptozoologists trying to find a monster or creature. Each player will have one piece of information, and all the information taken together will reveal the location of the monster. So every turn, a player will place the pawn on a particular place on the board and can either ask other players whether or not the monster can be there based on their clues, or actually search that location for the monster. All the other players will say whether the monster can be there based on their clues or not. And when you search and all the other players say yes, you win the game. So I'm a bit amazed at the designer of this game. I cannot imagine how they can pack such a game in a small package. I mean, it's not that small, but my gosh, the game, it's so crazy. It's basically just 6 modular boards and a few booklets for each player, plus the cards dictating the arrangement of the boards and the clues for each player at various player counts. That's it. That's all you need. And it just works. We actually tried to check whether one clue can point to different locations, but it just does not. And that is amazing. It does not even tell you what's the right answer per scenario. Amazing. So I love deduction games. I feel so smart whenever I win a deduction game. And the first game I played of Cryptid, I won and I had to do a little victory dance. So it's such a fun game to play. You can play 3 to 5 games in one go and still feel like you did not burn your brain. So nasa gitna siya ng filler and meaty game. So it's also highly replayable but a bit abstract. I don't mind the abstractness personally. Unlike Celine, when I asked her if she liked the game, she just said, medyo abstract siya. So I don't think she liked the game. I'm curious though if they're going to come out with expansions for this game and how that particular expansion will play into the base game. So that's Cryptid. We also played Just One. Just One is the 2019 Spiel des Jahres winner, and I finally got to play it. This is a party game for 3 to 7 players from Repo's production. In this game, there is a guesser and multiple players giving clues. So basically, there's a word the guesser must guess, and the other people will give one-word clues for that person to guess that word. The catch is, though, they cannot give the same clue because if they do, their clue gets cancelled out. So you want to create a unique but not too vague clue. So the goal is for the team to get a score as close to 13 as possible, but you only have 13 turns. So this game was so much fun. I did not get both of my words, but I think I gave some solid clues to other players. I think it's a very good icebreaker and you can play it with people who do not really play board games. I mean, you can play it with your family, you can play it with your office mates who don't really play board games. It's funny when you give some obscure clue and you end up messing the guesser up because the other clues got cancelled out. This has happened to us. It's also funny when you think you nailed a unique and on-point clue, but it turns out that like 3 other people were thinking it. So Just One is very, very fun and definitely worthy of the Spiel des Jahres win. The next game that I've played is Kashgar, Merchants of the Silk Road. So Kashgar is a deck/pool building game for 2 to 4 players from Cosmos. In this game, players control 3 growing caravans and on each turn, they get to do the action of one of the cards on the front of one of their caravans. So after taking that action, the card the player used will either be discarded if it's a one-time action or go to the back of the caravan. Since your caravans are growing, it may take some time to take an action you want to do because it's at the back. So the cards can either let you gain spices, gold, or mules, fulfill an order, which earns you points, or manipulate your caravan or someone else's caravan. The game ends when a player has earned 25 points. So I must say that I quite enjoyed my game of Kashgar, although I was really bad at it. I don't think I planned my caravans well, and it took me so much time to cycle through and fulfill orders. But it's unique, and I like it. I don't think I've played a game like it. I wonder why it hasn't gotten much buzz than usual, since it's been out since 2013. So I'm very interested to play this more, and I want to try to be as efficient as possible with my caravans From my last play, it just felt random, but I think that was my fault and not the game's fault. So there, that's Kashgar. Okay, we're now in the second to the last game. Next game is Acquire. Acquire is a tile placement economic game for 2 to 6 players from Avalon Hill. I think Selena's talked about Acquire enough in episode 3, so I won't prolong this anymore. But I must say that after playing it, I am now thinking of getting my own copy. I really liked it. Blue also really liked it. And it's amazing considering how old the game is. I love that about board games. Some can really hold up against the cult of the new. So the only gripe I have about this game is that I can see it running too long with more player count. But I think this is manageable if someone polices the players. Like, uy, go na. Uy, bilisan mo. Diba? So I might pick this up if I ever see it on sale. Right now kasi Celine has it, so I don't feel the need to go and get it. Finally, I saved this game for last. After playing a bunch of Splendor killers, Blue and I decided to play Splendor. And I must say, Splendor is still alive. Blue and I are planning an episode where we talk about all these Splendor killers and which one are our favorites. But for now, I'm here to talk about Splendor. Splendor is a set collection engine building game for 2 to 4 players from Space Cowboys. So if you don't know how Splendor plays, you basically just do one action from a choice of 3. Get jewels, buy a card, or reserve a card. Each card has a cost in jewels, but once you buy these cards, they act as permanent jewels for you. So the cost goes down as you buy more cards. Basically, that's it. The person with the most points after the end game is triggered wins. I really love Splendor. It's such a classic. It's simple and just fantastic. The reason why I like it is that it's so simple. Sabi nga ni JT nung episode 5, the beauty is in its simplicity. And the game just makes sense. There are no unnecessary complications and the components are just so pretty. I mean, yung jewels niya, well, hindi siya jewel. I mean, you can actually deluxify your copy by getting the third-party components, but the poker chips serving as jewels are fine for me. So I'm going to save the more in-depth discussion of Splendor for a future episode, but yes, we played Splendor and it was a great way to cap off this rundown of new games played. That was a lot. Let's now go to our next segment, BGAS, or Board Game Acquisition Syndrome. So before we go to the games I've recently acquired, I just want to quickly talk about my process in buying new games. And this has been my process since I started buying games. I want to talk about it because I find this kind of discussion interesting, so you guys might actually be interested as well. So first, I take my friendly local gaming stores recommendations seriously because this has been a tried and true method for me. For me, friendly local gaming stores have the first-hand knowledge of what gamers in Manila like, and most probably, this will work for me and my friends. So next, I also watch and listen to a lot of Dice Tower. I've identified that Sam Healy's suggestions are usually in line with my taste. So I listen to the top 10 list, top 100 games of all time videos, and other general videos from the Dice Tower like Board Game Breakfast. And I also listen to the Dice Tower podcast. I then go to my friendly local gaming store and check the games available and see if something piques my interest based on this initial research. Then, if I see a game, I check the more detailed review from the Dice Tower and other people from BGG. I try not to get swayed by the hype too much. Like when the new Stone Meyer games come out, I don't instantly buy it. I also try to avoid pre-orders if I can help it unless I really want the game, and I'm sure that if I don't pre-order it, I won't be able to buy it when it lands here. So while I don't think this method is that bad, I don't actively research new releases of designers or publishers, this has still made me accumulate a significant amount of games that I don't get to play as often as I would want to. My shelf of shame, while it has decreased since the start of the year, is still there, staring at me with judging eyes. So I really want to be able to cut this down and have more self-control in terms of buying games. I think my main problem is that I get caught up in the consumerism of it all. I mean, kahit na hindi ko naman malalaro yung game, kailangan now na. I need it now. So I sometimes can't wait. I don't even try a game first, even if someone else has it, and I just buy it. And I end up getting too many games. So I'm doing better in expansions though. I have this rule that I have to have played the base game and liked it before buying an expansion. The only exception I could think of right now is Scythe, but that's because everyone has been raving about the Rise of Fenris expansion. But hopefully I get to play Scythe soon so that I can justify the purchase of the expansion in my head. Another thing that I recently did was I backed the game in Kickstarter. I backed Pret-a-Porter because I don't know why. I just thought that this was a very interesting theme and I saw that they achieved all of their stretch goals and parang sulit. So I just decided to get it. If this is my first time backing a game in Kickstarter and I'll let you guys know how it went, I'll get my game hopefully by this October. So if you have a tried and tested method in evaluating games to include in your collection, please do share that across because I might need your help. So since this is BGAS, and before we go to our next segment, I'll just quickly go through some of the games that I've recently picked up but have yet to play. First, I have 878 Vikings. I picked this up because I am a fan of the Last Kingdom series in Netflix. You guys should watch it. This is the more in line in terms of history game. So it's against the Viking invasion during Alfred the Great's time. I also picked up Architects of the West Kingdom. I'm going to be playing this on Tuesday and I'm very, very excited. I also picked up a couple of older games during the Gaming Library Great Big Sale, Broom Service and Castles of Burgundy. I also have Cat Lady. I've yet to play it. Demon Worker, which is another Japanese game. It sounds dark, but it's actually very cartoony. I know that this is also a worker placement game with different worker powers. I also have Dinosaur Island, Good Critters, Majesty for the Realm, which is another quote-unquote Splendor killer, Newton, Pandemic Fall of Rome, because I've heard really good things about Pandemic Fall of Rome, Res Arcana, another quote-unquote Splendor killer, Teotihuacan, the City of Gods, Quacks of Quedlinburg, because it's so hot right now, and welcome to another roll and write game. If you heard something that you would like me to review more quickly, please just let me know so I can bump it up in the lineup. You can get in touch with me in a variety of ways, email, Facebook, or Instagram. So with the board game acquisition syndrome portion done, let's now go to our next segment from the Meeple. So I asked the Meeples, do you guys cull your collection? If yes, how often and how do you determine which games to cull? So I got a couple of answers. Stephen said, so far I traded away some of my games which either A, I regret buying, B, a rarely played game in the group. Thankfully, the number culled is only a few. Those I can't trade away, I keep them as curiosities. This is also my problem. Well, I don't really regret buying any game. But my problem is sometimes I don't take into consideration the group that I play with when I buy a game. Thankfully though, Blue is always willing to try any game that I recommend. And now that I have a gaming library game night, hopefully I'll get to play more games there. Also, I have this similar problem with games that I won't be able to sell. Like for example, legacy games or the Exit series. What do I do with them? I can't just throw them away. I don't know. Maybe I'll recycle them. Morgan said, I've done culling, trimming several times already as I've realized a lot as time goes by. Having a lot of games in your shelf is nice, reach like 160 plus, but having them and not playing them is unfulfilling. Buying, collecting games, and playing games are two different things. Here is how I determine which to cull. Does it have the same mechanics or the same feel with what I prefer most? Example, both games are engine building, but I prefer this than this. Is it a game I would say yes if it was randomly picked or chosen to play? Am I having too much of this type or theme, similar to the first one? Is it something my wife also enjoys? And do I have the right kind of play group to play this? The funny thing here is that the answers to these questions changes or evolves from time to time. And so here's my input based on my first few years in the hobby. Hope this helps. Yes, Morgan, thank you very much for your feedback. Like I said in my previous episode, I actually sometimes I call a game that replaces a game. So this can be in terms of theme or game mechanic. And I also consider games that Blue likes playing because she's the one I play with the most. So for example, I've hold off getting rid of Sheriff of Nottingham because she really, really likes it. Even though I think I've grown tired of it. But I'm still keeping it for her. So kabaliktaran pala yan, no? I agree. I would rather be a board gamer than a board game collector, honestly. I don't want to just be collecting games. I want to be playing them. And they're two different things. And the ideal scenario is that they coincide in your life. But sometimes I feel like I'm more of a collector when I don't play the game. So, yes, I agree with you there, Morgan. Next, Tonichi. Tonichi said, I call as often as I need to do so. Games that were not received well and or those that don't get played often enough, especially bigger games, go. If I want a new game and it's similar to a current game, I have to let go of the current one. I also have a soft rule of 50 games and below. If I exceed, I have to call. I agree with this setting a limit to your collection. So, like I told you guys last time, my limit is 150. I will, towards the end of this year, work to limit that more into 100 games. So if you would like to share your own method of culling your collection, please do send that across and we can share it in our future episode. And that is going to wrap another great episode. Again, thank you guys so much for listening. And for those who have been with us from episode 1 to episode 10, thank you, thank you, thank you. I would very much appreciate your comments or feedback since you're very much involved in this journey too. And if you like this episode, please share it to someone you think will like it too. If you would like to hear or see more from us, please subscribe to our show in any of the different podcatchers you are using or follow us on Instagram at the BoardgamerPH. Don't forget, we do a live stream of our game night every Tuesday night on both the Gaming Library and OnDeck Facebook accounts. And finally, for any feedback, comment, questions, or if you would like to share your personal story as a board game collector and or moderator, please do send that across at theboardgamerph@gmail.com or www.facebook.com/theboardgamerph, and we will talk about it in a future episode. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Tune in again next time. Okay, thanks. Bye.